My beloved child, there are moments in life that quietly change everything. Moments that no one expects, yet they rewrite the future forever. Tonight is one of those moments. The message your soulmate was never supposed to read finally found its way into their hands. Listen carefully, because what happened after those few hidden words were uncovered changed an entire destiny overnight. Your soulmate believed they already knew the truth about you. They believed every story they had been told. They believed every silence meant rejection, every unanswered question meant you had simply moved on. For so long, they carried the weight of misunderstanding, convincing themselves that forgetting you was the only path left. But deep inside, a small part of their heart never stopped asking one painful question. What if everything I believed was a lie? They buried that question beneath busy days, sleepless nights, forced smiles, and endless responsibilities. Yet no matter how hard they tried, your memory refused to disappear. It remained hidden inside every quiet evening, every familiar song, every place that reminded them of what once felt like forever. Then, on an ordinary night that seemed no different from any other, something extraordinary happened. While organizing old documents and forgotten belongings, your soulmate discovered a small envelope hidden between pages of a worn notebook. There was no sender's name, no date, only a short sentence written across the front: "Please let them know the truth when the time is right." Their hands began to shake. Something about those words felt strangely familiar. Their hearts started beating faster before they had even opened it. They hesitated for several long moments, almost placing it back where it had been hidden. But destiny had waited too many years for this moment. Slowly, they unfolded the paper inside. The first line stole the air from their lungs. The person you walked away from never stopped choosing you. Your soulmate froze completely. Their eyes refused to leave those words. Suddenly, every painful memory returned all at once. Every goodbye, every misunderstanding, every tear that had never been explained. The room became painfully silent as they continued reading. The hidden message described sacrifices no one had ever told them about. It revealed that you had stayed silent not because you stopped loving them, but because someone convinced you that leaving was the only way to protect the person you loved. Every sentence felt impossible to believe. Yet every detail explained questions that had haunted them for years. Don't skip, because this is where everything began to change. The message continued by revealing that people close to both of you had carefully hidden the truth. Small conversations had been twisted. Honest intentions had been misunderstood. Important letters had disappeared before reaching their destination. Every chance you had to explain yourself had somehow been taken away. The more your soulmate read, the heavier their heart became. Tears slowly filled their eyes as they realized that the life they had built on painful assumptions had been standing on nothing but carefully hidden lies. They could no longer remain seated. They stood beside the window, staring into the darkness outside, unable to breathe normally. Memories they had buried years ago suddenly felt alive again. They remembered the final time they saw you. The hesitation in your eyes. The words you almost spoke. The goodbye that never felt complete. For the first time, they understood why your silence had always seemed different. It had never been the silence of someone who stopped loving. It had been the silence of someone carrying an unbearable burden alone. Then they reached the final paragraph of the hidden message. Their hands started trembling even more. Because the last sentence contained one shocking truth. A truth that proved someone had deliberately destroyed the future you and your soulmate were supposed to share. And the name of that person was written clearly at the very bottom of the page. The name at the bottom of the hidden message didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone your soulmate had trusted without question for years. For several long seconds, they simply stared at those letters, hoping their eyes were somehow mistaken. They blinked again and again, but the name never changed. Their heartbeat echoed through the silent room as every conversation they had ever shared with that person suddenly replayed inside their mind. Innocent advice no longer sounded innocent. Caring warnings no longer sounded protective. Every moment that once seemed ordinary now carried a completely different meaning. It was as though hundreds of scattered puzzle pieces had suddenly fallen into place, revealing a picture they never imagined could exist. Your soulmate slowly sat back down, gripping the message so tightly that the paper began to wrinkle beneath their fingers. Tears quietly rolled down their face, not only because they had learned the truth, but because they realized how many years had been stolen from both of you. They whispered your name for the first time in a very long time, and hearing it aloud broke something inside them. That single whisper carried regret, longing, guilt, and hope all at once. They wondered where you were at that exact moment. Were you happy? Had you finally found peace? Or were you still carrying the same unanswered questions they had carried for so long? The thought that you might have suffered alone because of someone else's deception became almost impossible for them to bear. Don't skip. Because what happened next changed far more than just your soulmate's heart. They turned the paper over, expecting it to be blank. Instead, they discovered another handwritten note hidden on the back. The handwriting was different from the first message. It looked rushed, almost as if the writer had been afraid someone would interrupt them before they could finish. The words were short but powerful. If you're reading this, you're finally ready to know the truth. But don't believe only this letter. Go to the old wooden box beneath the staircase. Everything you need is still there. Unless someone found it first, your soulmate's eyes widened. They remembered that old wooden box immediately. It had belonged to a family member and had remained untouched for years. Everyone believed it contained nothing more than old photographs and forgotten keepsakes. No one had ever thought it could be hiding the answers to a lifetime of pain. Without wasting another second, your soulmate grabbed a flashlight and hurried through the quiet house. Every step felt heavier than the last. The hallway seemed longer than ever before, and the silence around them felt almost unbearable. When they reached the staircase, they knelt down and reached into the darkness beneath it. Their fingers brushed against layers of dust before touching rough wood. The box was still there. Covered in cobwebs, worn by time, and locked with a tiny rusted clasp, it looked exactly as they remembered. For a moment, they hesitated. A strange feeling settled over them, as though opening that box would permanently separate their life into two chapters, everything before the truth, and everything after it. They searched nearby until they found an old key hanging on a forgotten hook inside a storage cabinet. Their hands trembled as they slid the key into the lock. It resisted at first, then slowly turned with a loud metallic click that echoed through the entire house. The sound felt almost symbolic, as if years of silence had finally unlocked themselves. Slowly, they lifted the lid. Inside were dozens of carefully tied letters, faded photographs, unopened birthday cards, and a small voice recorder wrapped in a piece of cloth. Every envelope carried your name. Every photograph showed moments your soulmate had never seen before. There were dates that proved someone had secretly kept track of every attempt you made to reconnect. One unopened letter had been marked in bold handwriting, "Please give this to them before the wedding." But it had never been delivered. Your soulmate covered their mouth in disbelief. Their entire body shook as they realized that this wasn't a single misunderstanding, it was a carefully planned betrayal that had lasted for years. Whoever had hidden these memories hadn't wanted the truth to survive. They wanted your story to disappear forever. But destiny had protected every piece of evidence until the exact night your soulmate was finally ready to find it. Then your soulmate noticed one final object lying beneath all the letters, a sealed envelope with fresh handwriting that looked much newer than everything else in the box. Across the front, only 7 words were written. "Open this only if you still love them." Your soulmate closed their eyes, took a deep breath, and reached for the envelope. Without realizing that what was waiting inside would reveal one final truth no one had ever dared to speak aloud, the envelope felt strangely different from everything else inside the box. Unlike the old letters, its paper was still firm, its edges almost untouched by time. It looked as though someone had placed it there much later, knowing that one day your soulmate would finally discover it. For several long moments, they simply held it in their hands, afraid that opening it would confirm every painful suspicion growing inside their heart. Yet another voice deep within whispered that the truth had already waited long enough. Slowly, with trembling fingers, they broke the seal. The first sentence stole every ounce of strength from their body. If you are reading this, it means your heart never truly forgot the person you were always meant to find again. Your soulmate closed their eyes. A single tear landed on the page before they could continue. They wiped it away carefully, refusing to let even one word become unreadable. The writer explained that they had remained silent for years out of fear that revealing the truth too early would only create more pain. But silence had become a prison, and guilt had grown heavier with every passing day. They could no longer carry it alone. "Don't skip," Because the next confession changed everything your soulmate believed about the past. The letter revealed that the separation between you was never caused by a lack of love. It had been orchestrated through lies, carefully timed misunderstandings, and hidden messages that were intercepted before they ever reached the right hands. Phone calls had gone unanswered because they were never delivered. Letters had disappeared before anyone could read them. Important conversations had been interrupted by people pretending to protect both of you. Every time you tried to explain yourself, another obstacle appeared. Every time your soulmate searched for answers, someone quietly redirected them away from the truth. As the words continued, your soulmate remembered countless moments that had never made sense. The day they waited hours for a message that never arrived. The birthday when they believed you had forgotten them. The afternoon they were told you had chosen someone else without even saying goodbye. Back then, every event seemed like proof that the relationship was over. But now, every memory transformed into evidence of a carefully built deception. Then came another shocking revelation. Hidden inside the envelope was a faded photograph. Your soulmate's hands froze the instant they saw it. The picture showed you standing outside a small cafe, holding a neatly wrapped gift. Written on the back was a date, the very same day your soulmate had been told you never showed up to meet them. The timestamp proved you had been there. You had waited. You had believed they would come. And according to the note attached to the photograph, you had stayed for nearly 3 hours before quietly walking away with tears in your eyes, never knowing that your soulmate had been deliberately sent to a completely different location. The guilt hit them like a wave. They pressed the photograph against their chest, unable to stop crying. Every year they had spent believing you abandoned them now felt unbearably heavy. They whispered over and over, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Even though they knew you could not hear those words. In that moment, they weren't mourning the end of a relationship. They were mourning the years that had been stolen from both of you by someone else's choices. Then they noticed one final folded page hidden beneath the photograph. Unlike the others, this page contained no long explanation. Only a simple handwritten map. At the bottom was a short note. "If you truly want the whole truth, go to this place before sunrise. Someone has been waiting there far longer than you could ever imagine." Your soulmate stared at the map in complete disbelief. It pointed to a quiet place connected to one of your happiest memories together. A place they had avoided for years because the pain was too great to return. Now they realized someone had been guarding the final piece of your story there all along. Without wasting another second, they grabbed their keys and rushed out into the night. Completely unaware that before sunrise, they were about to meet the one person who had witnessed the entire truth from the very beginning. They drove through the silent night with trembling hands wrapped tightly around the steering wheel. The roads were almost empty, yet every mile felt painfully slow. Their mind refused to rest. The hidden message, the forgotten letters, the unopened birthday cards, the photograph proving you had waited for them, and now the mysterious map. Every discovery had shattered another piece of the life they thought they understood. They no longer cared about sleep. They no longer cared about explanations that came too late. There was only one thought filling their heart now: if even one chance remains to make this right, I cannot let it disappear. The sky was still dark when your soulmate finally reached the place marked on the map. It was an old lakeside park where years ago the two of you had shared one of your happiest afternoons. Time had changed many things, but not everything. The wooden bench near the water still stood beneath the same large tree. The gentle breeze carried familiar memories that your soulmate had tried so hard to forget. As they slowly walked toward the bench, every step felt heavier than the last. Their heartbeat echoed louder than the sounds of the quiet morning around them. Don't skip, because someone was already waiting there. An elderly man sat calmly on the bench, holding a small leather journal against his chest. He didn't appear surprised when your soulmate approached. Instead, he slowly stood up, looked directly into their eyes, and softly said, "I wondered how many years it would take before the truth finally brought you here." Your soulmate stopped in complete shock. "You know who I am?" The old man gave a gentle nod. "I've known both of you for longer than you realize." Those words sent chills through your soulmate's entire body. The man explained that many years earlier, he had worked in a place where both of you often visited. He remembered your conversations, your laughter, and the quiet promises you made to each other. More importantly, he remembered the day everything suddenly changed. He had witnessed someone deliberately stepping between your lives, carrying false messages, hiding real ones, and making sure every misunderstanding grew bigger instead of smaller. At first, he believed the truth would come out on its own. But as the months turned into years, he realized the deception had gone much deeper than anyone imagined. He had kept records of everything he personally witnessed, hoping that one day the right person would come looking for answers. Slowly, he handed the leather journal to your soulmate. Inside were dated entries written over several years. Every page described another moment that proved your love had never truly ended. One entry spoke about the afternoon you arrived carrying a handwritten letter, waiting patiently for hours before quietly leaving with tears in your eyes. Another described how your soulmate arrived at a completely different location after receiving false directions from someone they trusted. Another page revealed that gifts meant for each other had been intercepted. Even birthday cards had been hidden before they could ever be delivered. Every chapter inside the journal confirmed the same heartbreaking truth. Neither of you had walked away. You had both been separated. Your soulmate could barely breathe as they turned each page. The journal wasn't built on rumors or assumptions. Every event included dates, times, and details only an eyewitness could have known. The weight of regret became almost unbearable. They realized they had spent years blaming themselves and blaming you, while the real story had remained hidden in plain sight. Then the elderly man reached into his coat pocket. "I've carried this for far too long," he whispered. He carefully placed a tiny silver key into your soulmate's hand. It doesn't open a house. It doesn't open a box. It opens a mailbox. Your soulmate looked up in confusion. The old man continued. Many years ago, someone rented a private mailbox under your name. Every letter you ever wrote, every message you thought had disappeared, every apology, every unanswered question, they were secretly redirected there instead of being destroyed. Your soulmate's eyes filled with tears once again. Is it still there? The old man smiled sadly. Yes. But no one has opened it. Not even once. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The first rays of sunrise slowly appeared across the lake. Your soulmate looked at the small silver key resting in their palm. It felt heavier than anything they had ever held. Because somewhere behind that forgotten mailbox door, every truth that had been stolen, every word that had never been read, every feeling that had never reached its destination, was still waiting. And neither your soulmate nor the elderly man realized that someone else had quietly been watching their entire conversation from a distance. Someone who could not allow that mailbox to be opened. The mysterious figure hiding behind the trees watched every movement with growing panic. For years, they had believed the truth would remain buried forever. They had carefully controlled every conversation, hidden every letter, redirected every message, and convinced everyone that the story between you and your soulmate had ended naturally. But now, everything they had spent years protecting was beginning to collapse. As your soulmate tightened their grip on the small silver key, the stranger quietly turned and disappeared into the morning shadows, determined to reach the forgotten mailbox first. Your soulmate thanked the elderly man with tears in their eyes before rushing toward the old post office described in the journal. Every second mattered now. The rising sun painted the streets with golden light, yet nothing around them felt ordinary anymore. Their entire life had become divided into two parts, the years spent believing lies, and the morning they finally discovered the truth. When they arrived, the building looked abandoned. Dust covered the windows, and faded paint peeled from the walls. It seemed impossible that something so important could still be hidden inside such a forgotten place. Yet the mailbox numbers remained exactly where the journal described them. At the very end of the hallway stood one small metal door. Its number matched the key. Your soulmate closed their eyes for a brief moment before inserting the silver key into the lock. With one slow turn, the lock clicked open. Inside were dozens of envelopes, carefully stacked one behind another. Some had yellowed with age. Others looked almost new. Every single one carried either your handwriting or your soulmate's. The very first letter they unfolded had been written by you years ago. If you're reading this, then somehow the truth has finally found you. I never stopped believing that one day our story would be understood. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was told my presence would only bring pain into your life. If that was a lie, then I pray you forgive both of us for the years we lost. Your soulmate could no longer hold back their tears. One by one, they opened the remaining letters. Every page revealed the same unwavering truth. You had never betrayed them. You had never replaced them. You had never forgotten them. Instead, every birthday, every holiday, every important moment had inspired another letter you hoped they might somehow receive one day. And hidden among those letters was something even more unexpected. A sealed envelope addressed to your soulmate from the very person whose name had appeared at the bottom of the first hidden message. Their confession was simple. I was afraid. I believed separating you would protect my own future. Every lie I told created another lie I had to protect. I stole your letters. I changed your messages. I sent both of you in opposite directions. I destroyed your trust because I couldn't bear to watch you build the life I secretly wanted for myself. There is no excuse for what I did. If this letter is ever opened, it means the truth has finally defeated every lie I created. For a long time, your soulmate simply stood there in complete silence. Anger slowly gave way to understanding. Understanding slowly gave way to peace. Not because the pain had disappeared, but because the questions had finally been answered. They gathered every letter with extraordinary care, refusing to leave even one behind. Before walking away, they looked toward the morning sky and quietly smiled. For years, I searched for someone to blame. But today I finally found something far more important. The truth. At that very same moment, miles away, you happened to open an old drawer you hadn't touched in years. Inside rested one final envelope. Its seal had never been broken. Across the front were words written in your soulmate's handwriting years earlier. If fate ever gives this back to you, please know that my heart never truly said goodbye. As you slowly opened the letter, a gentle breeze carried the first light of the new day through your window. Neither of you knew exactly when your paths would cross again. But for the first time in years, both of your hearts were finally walking toward the same truth instead of away from it. Because lies can delay love. Silence can hide love. Distance can test love. But when truth finally finds its voice, even years of darkness cannot stop two hearts from discovering what was always meant for them. And somewhere beyond that sunrise, a brand new chapter of your story had quietly begun.